Changsheng Xiuxian. I can use the energy and blood of my tribe to add points. Introduction. Chapter 1. Just crossing the river and dying. What is this human suffering? You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Great Wind Dynasty, Huaishui County, Changsheng Town. Known by outsiders as Changsheng Town, it is one of the 4 major families in the Luo family territory. Luo Changfeng was struggling to open a pair of slightly cloudy and unclear eyes. Halfway lying on an old grand tutor's chair that had been around for an unknown number of years, with several pieces of paint falling off. 3 middle-aged men with different expressions stood in front of them. The noisy voices of discussion in his ears were continuously transmitted into his somewhat dull mind. Have I traveled? Luo Changfeng looked at the 2 people in front of him who were constantly arguing, the one who remained silent. I looked at my incredibly thin, wrinkled arms again, as rough as bark. He once again affirmed the fact that he had traveled to another world. However, this journey returns to the journey. Why do others travel, either the young master of the family or the son of the Holy Lord of the Holy Land? Once again, it is at least the core or personal disciples within the main sect. Life's safety is generally guaranteed. And he, Luo Changfeng, but through time, he became the ancestor of the Luo family, whose life was about to end and half of his body had already fallen into the soil. You say, what are all these things? Ancestor, the Great Wind Dynasty was already chaotic, but now it has experienced several years of severe drought, and countless ordinary people have risen up. If at this point, our Luo family has not taken any action yet, as time passes, we will inevitably be destroyed by others and become dust in history. Among the 3 middle-aged men in front of me. That body is 2 meters tall and robust, like a tiger or wolf. Luo Yong, with a face full of flesh and even a ferocious scar on his face. Seeing that he couldn't say anything, he turned his head and said to his ancestor, Zonglua Changfeng, with a somewhat excited expression. Ancestor, although what the 3rd brother said is true. But the Great Wind Dynasty, after all, was still the Great Wind Dynasty, as the old saying goes, a skinny camel is bigger than a horse. If our Luo family is targeted by the people of the Great Wind Dynasty due to the uprising, they will become those early birds. Our Luo family will inevitably come to an end of destruction. In a room with slightly dim lighting. Wearing a Confucian robe, he is about 1.8 meters tall. Luan, who appears slightly frail in physique. At this moment, he couldn't care about his own face and hurriedly spoke in detail to his own ancestors in front of him. And in front of these 2 people, dressed in green clothes with no expression on their faces. The current head of the Luo family, Luo Ping, exudes a majestic aura faintly on his body. It feels like there's nothing wrong with him. Just slightly lower your head, looking at your nose and nose, looking at your heart. I have no intention of getting involved in the topic discussed by the 2 brothers next to me. Enough. Seeing Luo Yong and Luoan in front of them, it seemed that they wanted to continue arguing. Luo Changfeng frowned slightly and stopped the argument between the 2 people in front of him. At the same time, he also reached out his hand helplessly and rubbed his temples. As soon as this person gets old, he can't listen to others arguing. You 2 should step back first. Luo Changfeng rubbed for a while until his head didn't hurt so much. He whispered to Luo Yong and Luoan in front of him. But, our ancestors. Luo Yong swallowed his saliva and hesitated. It seems like I want to persuade my ancestors again. Based on his understanding and judgment of the current state of the world. Choosing to absorb refugees and accumulate one's own strength now is definitely an excellent choice. Even if we don't rebel, at least in this chaotic world. You can also protect yourself, can't you? I said, step back first. Luo Changfeng raised his head slightly and looked at Luo Yong in front of him, his expression gradually becoming a bit cold. But Luo Yong hesitated to speak. Finally, under the cold gaze of my own ancestors, He turned around with some helplessness and some anger. Silently walking towards the outside of this room. Wearing a Confucian robe and with a slightly frail figure, Luoan saw this and bowed his hand to his ancestors before exiting the room. With the departure of Luo Yong and Luoan. In the dimly lit room, the overall atmosphere gradually became somewhat quiet. Even to the point where the sound of people's breathing gradually becomes clear in their ears. Ancestor, if nothing happens, I will also retire. Luo Ping lowered his head slightly and spoke with a respectful expression. Wait a minute, Luo Changfeng said, squinting his eyes slightly and carefully examining the current head of the Luo family in front of him. The ancestors of the Luo family in the past were not very clever, perhaps they couldn't understand the meaning of Luo Ping bringing the other two brothers. But as a traveler, Luo Changfeng wouldn't know what this little guy really means. It's just about wanting to kick this difficult problem towards oneself. Let him, the ancestor of the Luo family, balance the conflict between Luo Yong and Luoan. You should have heard both Luo Yong and Luoan just now. What do you think about this matter? After a long silence, Luo Changfeng finally managed to sort out his chaotic thoughts through his somewhat sluggish brain. He then whispered a question to the current head of the Luo family, Luo Ping, in front of him. This. Luo Ping raised his head in surprise and secretly glanced at the ancestor sitting on the main throne. Then, he lowered his head again. He seemed somewhat surprised that his ancestors would ask him such a question. Simply put, that's it. Luo Changfeng saw that Luo Ping's words were a bit hesitant in front of him, so he spoke out again. Ancestor, since that's the case, I'll just say it directly. What third brother said is indeed true. It is important to hold a certain amount of military power in times of chaos. But what my second brother said is also reasonable. The Great Wen Dynasty, after all, is still the same as the Great Wen Dynasty, and its heritage still exists. It's not easy to be a leading bird. So. As he spoke, Luo Ping quietly lifted his head again and carefully glanced at the expression of his ancestors in the book garden www.zhaoxuiyuan.com. After seeing my own ancestors still with slightly narrowed eyes and unchanged expressions. His emotions couldn't help but become more and more nervous, and he even dared not take a breath of air. Although Luo Changfeng was somewhat dissatisfied with the answer given by the current head of the Luo family. But he still let the little one go in the end. After about half an hour of contemplation. Only then did Luo Changfeng digest all the memories in his mind. The situation in the Great Wen Dynasty is already not good. Nowadays, there has been a severe drought for several years. Officials are greedy and crazily exploit the people. Some people take this opportunity to rise up, while others take this opportunity to become bandits and dominate the mountains. Some people, because they cannot afford to eat, switch to eating. The wine and meat in Zhumen smell bad, and there are frozen bones on the road. This sentence is completely appropriate to describe the current era. Even though this Huaishui County is located on the side of the Huaishui River, it has a relatively sufficient water source. Changsheng town is located within this Huaishui County. The officials in the small town have a limit to the exploitation of the people. But the lives of the people in Changsheng town are still extremely difficult. However, regardless of the current situation of the Great Wen Dynasty. And with him, as his longevity is nearing its end, his qi and blood have declined to the extreme, making it difficult to walk on any path. Even if half of the body has already been buried in the soil, what is the connection between the ancestors of the Luo family? Just crossing over, you're about to die. What kind of human suffering is this? Chapter 2. The golden finger that consumes the qi and blood points of the clan people. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What should I do? Is it really difficult to die in the middle of the Luo family's land? As soon as Luo Changfeng thought of this, he felt even more headache-stricken. Although he doesn't know how long he can still live. But judging from his current situation, 1 month is probably quite a long time. As for the so-called miraculous elixir that can prolong life. If possible, Luo Changfeng naturally wants it too. But the question is, are these pills and spiritual medicines that can increase longevity possessed by the ancestors of his small family? Before crossing over, I really wanted to. But this has really traveled. I really regret it a bit. At least, it shouldn't be a problem for me to live for a few decades before crossing over. In a room with slightly dim lighting, Luo Changfeng let out a long, slightly cloudy breath. Just as he wanted to stand up, go for a walk, and take a look. Suddenly, a semi-transparent attribute panel appeared in front of him. Name: Luo Changfeng. P.S. The ancestor of the Luo family, one of the 4 major families in Qingshi town. Xiuxian. 7 days plus, P.S. remaining time. Cultivation. Early bone refining plus, PS1. Each realm is divided into early, middle, late, and complete. PS. The peak period of the host's cultivation is complete bone refining. Due to the decline of qi and blood, the realm has declined to the early bone refining stage. Qi and blood. 1350, PS. This is the total qi and blood of the family. The safe and usable amount of qi and blood is 135. If using qi and blood beyond this amount, there will be uncontrollable events. Skill. Ordinary and ultimate, fierce tiger power, understanding. 30% plus, PS. The skill is graded from low to high, non-mainstream, ordinary, yellow, mysterious, earth, heaven. See the property panel in front of you. Luo Changfeng was a bit dumbfounded. Isn't this the golden finger that comes with me crossing over? I thought I should have no problem living for another 10 or 20 days, but I didn't expect. My birthday has only the last 7 days left. By the way, what does this qi and blood mean? What is the safe range of 1/10 of the family's total qi and blood? So, can I use this qi and blood to add some? Luo Changfeng's eyebrows furrowed slightly, and his thoughts kept flowing in his mind. Just as he reached out his hand and tentatively clicked the plus sign after Xiuxian. Before his eyes, a semi-transparent attribute panel popped up again. There are 2 choices on the property panel this time. One is, yes, and the other is, no. To increase 1 day's lifespan, it requires 10 points of HP. Does the host experience an increase? Yes, no, 10 points Qi and HP increase by 1 day's longevity, which means within a safe and usable range, can only increase lifespan by up to 13 days. This longevity growth is a bit low. Luo Changfeng ignored the prompt that had just jumped out. Extend your right hand again and click the plus sign after your cultivation. If his memory in his mind is correct, as long as his cultivation reaches the level of refining organs above bone refining, he can extend his life by at least 20 years. If one reaches the realm of practicing blood above refining organs, they can continue to live for 30 years. If you break through the practice of blood and reach the realm of transformation above the practice of blood, even living to be around 300 years old is not a big problem. To elevate a small realm, it requires consuming 100 points of HP. May I ask if the host has increased it? Yes, no. The familiar semi-transparent window page once again appeared in Luo Changfeng's eyes. A small realm with 100 HP points. That is to say, with the current safe amount of available qi and blood, I can only increase by 1 small level. Luo Changfeng couldn't help but hesitate at the thought of this. He is pondering whether he should use all the safe and usable qi and blood to enhance his longevity. Or rather, elevate to a small level first. Then increase the lifespan by 3 more days. By the way, I have a question to ask: will the total qi and HP of this family recover after use? How long will it take to fully recover? Before adding points, Luo Changfeng raised this question about his golden finger. However, it's a bit regrettable. This golden finger did not answer his question. Helpless, Luo Changfeng could only take a more secure approach. That's to try it yourself. Then, let's take a look at the consumed Qi and HP, and see how long it takes to recover. Add 3 days of longevity yuan first. Luo Changfeng thought so in his heart. Subsequently, he extended his sinful right hand, which could deduct the blood and energy of his tribe. Qingshi town is the land of the Luo family. Outside the courtyard where the head of the Luo family is located. As the current head of the Luo family, Luo Ping left his ancestral courtyard. Zhaoxuyuan.com he hurriedly walked towards his courtyard. Just as he stepped into his own yard, about to step into his room adorned with many paintings. Suddenly, he felt a wave of dizziness. Fortunately, this situation did not last long before it came to an end. My son, my son. As Luo Ping just stepped into his room. He hurriedly sat on a reclining chair, dressed in a white robe with a delicate face. Between his eyebrows and eyes, the seemingly weak young man shouted loudly. Father, as the head of this Luo family, what do you look like in a hurry? First, sit down and take a breath, have a cup of tea, and then speak. The young man named Luo Chuan calmly picked up a ceramic teapot next to him and picked up a ceramic teacup. After pouring a 7-part full cup of tea for my own father. He then whispered calmly to the head of the Luo family next to him. Ha! Luo Ping let out a long breath. After drinking the tea handed over by his son in one breath, he whispered, My son, I have followed everything you told me. I also kicked this difficult problem to the feet of the elder Changfeng. However, today's ancestor seems somewhat abnormal, even asking me to stay and asking for my opinion on this matter. What did you say, father? Luo Chuan frowned slightly. I naturally practice Tai Chi there. How dare I speak recklessly about things that determine the fate of my family, even when I don't understand my ancestors' thoughts. Chapter 3. The Future Path of the Luo Family. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Father, how do you look when you see your ancestors today? After a moment of silence, Luo Chuan asked again. The expression of our ancestors. Luo Ping pondered for a moment and whispered, Our ancestors' expression is even worse than what we saw a week ago. Even beside my ancestor Changfeng, I could vaguely smell a scent of decay and death. Perhaps in less than a month, the ancestors of Changfeng will. Is that so? Upon hearing this, Luo Chuan's already slightly furrowed brow couldn't help but tighten. The expression on his face gradually became more solemn as time passed. It seems that the situation at the Luo family is even more serious than I imagined. Although our Luo family is known to outsiders as one of the 4 major families in Qingshi town. Powerful and possessing countless wealth. But within the family, the major factions have different ideas about the family's future development. Father, as the head of the family, you need to consider the overall situation. Uncle Heir studied hard for 10 years in the cold window, but after failing to achieve any results, he transferred from literature to business and controlled 70% or more of the family's wealth. San Shu is strong and physically strong, with great strength, making him the strongest member of our Luo family. In his hands, he also controls the strongest and most elite servants in the family. But with well-developed limbs and a simple mind. A person who is not careful will be fooled and crippled by outsiders, selling themselves and having to count others' money. The reason why this vast Luo family has been able to maintain itself to this day. What we rely on is the majesty that the ancestors of Changfeng have preserved in the past. If at such a critical moment, something unexpected happens to Changfeng ancestor, our Luo family is likely to gradually disintegrate and be devoured by the other 3 major families in Qingshi town, as well as the extremely greedy officials in Qingshi town. As soon as Luo Chuan said this, the atmosphere in the room suddenly became somewhat oppressive and uncomfortable. My son, is there really no other way to preserve the family? There's either no solution, it's just something, just say it directly, Dad can handle it. Luo Ping stared at his son Luo Chuan beside him, his words trembling slightly. And in the room, Luo Chuan slowly picked up a cup of tea next to him. Put it to your mouth and drink it out. Glancing slightly at the father beside him who was breathing somewhat disorderly, he sighed slightly and said, "The Great Wind Dynasty experienced several years of severe drought, and countless people fell into rebellion and rose up. Even though the foundation of the Great Wind Dynasty still exists, the emergence of this chaotic era is inevitable. In this chaotic world, if our Luo family cannot unite, I think it's better to find a deserted deep mountain and live in seclusion, which can also be a way to continue the family's bloodline. If our Luo family really wants to do this, we may have to give up the family industry in Changsheng town, which has been painstakingly managed for 200 to 300 years. Even if the chaotic era comes to an end, the Great Wind Dynasty will suppress the turmoil, or in other words, new rulers will emerge. Our Luo family has also found it difficult to return to Changsheng town." Luo Chuan's words, although very calm. But it was this calmness that made the current head of the Luo family, Luo Ping, feel extremely heavy in his heart. Ensuring the continuity of family bloodline. "Chuaner, what do you mean by this? After pondering for a long time, Luo Ping suddenly caught important information and quickly asked his son Luo Chuan beside him. "Yes, even so, it's just about ensuring the continuity of the family's bloodline." Luo Chuan poured himself another cup of tea and drank it all in one gulp. He looked up with a somewhat helpless expression at his father, the head of the family, and whispered, "Father, you wouldn't naively think that if you decide to leave Changsheng town and find a secluded place in the deep mountains, the people from Uncle 2 and Uncle 3 will obediently follow you, right? Uncle Air's personality is most conservative. It must be impossible for him to give up his family business and leave Changsheng town. Uncle San has a strong personality and always wants to take advantage of the chaotic times to go out and explore. If it weren't for the presence of Changfeng ancestor, third uncle would have left this small town with his own people long ago, with a population of less than 100,000. So, even if you listen to me and don't participate in this chaotic world, at most it's just to ensure the continuity of the family's bloodline. Is there really no way to achieve both?" Luo Ping hesitated. If possible, he naturally wouldn't want to leave this place where the Luo family has survived and developed for 200 to 300 years. "Father, you can't have both fish and bear's paws at the same time. As the head of the Luo family, you must make a decision at a critical moment." After Luo Chuan finished speaking, he silently stood up and walked alone outside the room. As Luo Chuan gradually left, his figure slowly disappeared into Luo Ping's sight. Luo Ping sat weakly on a wooden armchair. "My eyes are staring blankly into the distance. To live in seclusion, or to grit one's teeth and stay behind. Find Xiuyuan www.zhaoxuyuan.com, which of these two paths should I choose?" And just as the head of the Luo family, Luo Ping, hesitated and wavered. Within the territory of the Zhao family, one of the 4 major families in Changsheng town, Zhao Wu, the current head of the Zhao family, and a group of elders of the Zhao family. At this moment, they also gathered together one after another. "Dr. Wang, according to what you see in the Luo family's land, how long can that old thing still live?" In the quiet and incredibly bright hall, sitting quietly on the main seat, Zhao Wu suddenly faced the person in front of him, dressed in purple attire, with a wrinkled face and a long white beard. The elderly man, who was sagging old but had exceptionally good spirits, asked in a low voice. "As far as I can see, in less than half a month, the elderly immortal in the Luo family's land will definitely die due to the depletion of his lifespan." Dr. Wang smiled slightly and confidently stroked his soft white beard while whispering. The old man known as Dr. Wang Kuan. Previously, he was the best and most famous physician in traditional Chinese medicine in Changsheng town. As Dr. Wang did not seek refuge with any faction within Changsheng town. Therefore, people from various factions in Changsheng town liked to invite him to treat various diseases. The ancestors of the Luo family were in a state of panic as their lifespan was about to run out. I have also invited Dr. Wang to inquire if there is any way to prolong life. However, the result is also evident. Leaving aside whether there is one, even if it is, the cost cannot be borne by the small Luo family. Chapter 4. Improving Cultivation and Restoring Strength. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In less than half a month. Dr. Wang, are you sure about this time? Zhao Wu, who was sitting quietly on the throne, gradually became more serious and serious upon hearing this. Such matters are related to the family's future development path. He must make it clear. Otherwise this matter is likely to affect the future of his Zhao family. My master's medical skills are not something you can casually question. After Wang Kuan's judgment was questioned. Before he could stand up, the disciple who was personally passed down behind Wang Kuan couldn't help but speak out. Shut up. Wang Kuan's mouth curved upward slightly, and he looked behind him with a somewhat satisfied expression, behind the rather sensible disciple passed down. He pretended to be angry and pretended to scold his own disciple behind him in a loud voice. Don't you take a look at where this is and what people are here? Is it a place like this where a younger generation like you can speak freely? After reprimanding his own disciple, Wang Kuan's face showed a hint of apology as he whispered to Zhao Wu, the head of the Zhao family above him. Master of the Zhao family, I offended you for being ignorant. I'm really sorry. It's okay. Zhao Wu gritted his teeth tightly, suppressing his anger. Since the head of the Zhao family has already obtained the desired answer. If there's nothing else next, then I'll leave first. In all the rooms of the high-level Zhao family, Wang Kuan lowered his head slightly and spoke calmly in a low voice. Okay, please step back. Zhao Wu, sitting still on the main seat, waved his hand expressionlessly. So, Wang Kuan was under the gaze of everyone. With the personal disciple behind him, he gradually withdrew from the room where the atmosphere seemed somewhat off. Master, why are you so arrogant like Wang Kuan? In the conference hall, among the elders of the Zhao family, a middle-aged elder couldn't contain his emotions and stood up directly. No problem. Zhao Wu shook his head slightly. After a moment of silence, he continued, just a week ago, Wang Kuan successfully passed the entrance examination of Wandanzong and became one of the named disciples within Wandanzong. And that guy also controls the refining method of forging body pills. Nowadays, the relationship between our Zhao family and Wang Kuan is one of mutual utilization. Our Zhao family provides him with food, drink, accommodation, and various precious elixirs. And Wang Kuan provided us with the forging pill he refined for the Zhao family. So, as long as Wang Kuan doesn't hinder the development and growth of our Zhao family, everything else. Let him do it. With Zhao Wu's words, all the elders of the Zhao family bowed their heads helplessly. In this conference hall, boundless silence was once again restored. Wandanzong, this is a behemoth. Not to mention in this small windy imperial dynasty, even in the entire Donghuang Shenzhou, and even in the entire Xianyuan continent. These Wandanzong all hold highly respected positions. So, even if Wang Kuan just passed the entrance examination for Wandanzong. And it's just one of the countless named disciples of the Wandan sect. But that is not something that the Zhao family can easily provoke nowadays. As time goes by. Soon, a new day slowly descended quietly. Qingshi town is the land of the Luo family. As the only ancestor of the Luo family, Luo Changfeng. At this moment, he was silently staying in his courtyard, with a slightly weak body half lying on the old Grand Tutor's chair that had existed for many years. Muddy eyes, struggling to open. The semi-transparent attribute panel hung brightly in mid-air. Name. Luo Changfeng. Shouyuan. 9 days plus, cultivation. Initial bone refining plus, qi and blood. 1350, PS, safe and controllable qi and blood amount is 135. Skill. Ordinary and ultimate, fierce tiger power, understanding. 30% plus, looking at my own golden finger in front of me. Luo Changfeng's extremely cloudy eyes suddenly became slightly clear for a moment. In just one day, the consumed qi and blood have been restored. So, can we recover 30 points or more in a day? At this moment, Luo Changfeng seemed to have thought of something and quickly shook his head again. No, this calculation seems a bit inaccurate. The time when qi and blood were consumed yesterday to increase longevity was approximately afternoon yesterday. And now, it's just the next morning. Even when the sky is not completely bright. So, that is to say the consumption of 30 points of qi and blood can be fully restored in less than half a day. If that's the case, then I can first improve and enhance my cultivation. It's really difficult to live with the body of an old man who has exhausted his qi and blood to the extreme, and is even about to fall into the ground. Luo Changfeng thought and could not help roast. To elevate a small realm, it requires consuming 100 points of HP, may I ask if the host has increased it? Yes, no, as Luo Changfeng made a decision and extended his sinful right hand, which could deduct the energy in blood of his clan members. The window page that popped up yesterday. Today, it reappeared before his eyes. Zhaozuyuan.com, yes. Luo Changfeng extended his right hand and clicked the yes button again. Host selection detected, deducting 100 qi and blood. The host's cultivation is improving. A cold voice echoed in Luo Changfeng's mind. Then, a stream of slightly hot blood. Then it began to flow inside Luo Changfeng's body. After a complete route of blood flowing through his body, the exhausted qi and blood in his body gradually began to recover. His somewhat powerless body gradually regained some strength. His body, emitting a faint and decaying aura. At this moment, a little vitality gradually emanated. About 3 minutes later, this state gradually dissipates. Is this the power of the mid-stage realm of bone refining? Luo Changfeng stood up with excitement. Then, he pinched his hands, which were still incredibly thin and rough like tree bark. Although the current strength has not yet returned to its peak state. But what makes Luo Changfeng more pleased is the feeling of exhaustion, weakness, and powerlessness that had been constantly bothering him before. At this moment, it seems that more than half of it has disappeared. Although from time to time, he still feels a little tired and powerless. But at least he relied on his own strength to walk and move slightly. Even, in a short period of time, compare and contrast with others. This shouldn't be a big problem anymore. Chapter 5. This is the chaotic world. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Otherwise, go out for a walk. Luo Changfeng thought of this. Afterwards, he carried his hands behind his back. Step by step, walking leisurely towards the outside of the courtyard. Due to the fact that Luo Changfeng is the only remaining ancestor of the Luo family. Therefore, his courtyard is also located at the center of the Luo family's territory. Changfeng ancestor. Changfeng ancestor. Along the way, the members of the Luo family would respectfully greet Luo Changfeng. Luo Changfeng also smiled at this. He expressed his friendliness and goodwill towards his own ethnic group. After all, I want to improve my cultivation and understanding of martial arts in the future. We still have to rely on these ethnic people to provide us with a sufficient amount of qi and health. Isn't this the ancestor of Changfeng? Just as Luo Changfeng walked out of the door of the Luo family and headed towards the relatively bustling street. Located at the main entrance of the Luo family. The current head of the Luo family, Luo Ping, dressed in a green robe and leisurely strolling through the family, suddenly reached out and rubbed his eyes. He looked a bit dumbfounded. The moment I saw the ancestor of Changfeng. Luo Ping even felt that there was something wrong with his eyes. Just yesterday, our Changfeng ancestor was still on the brink of death, as if he was about to die. Today, there was a slight blush on my face, full of energy. Even able to stand up and walk around. Isn't this strange? Is it difficult? Is this what we call shining back? My thoughts have reached this point. Luoping's face suddenly became somewhat ugly. At first, that was a good mood, but at this moment, it gradually became a bit uncomfortable. I need to quickly talk to Chuaner about this matter. There are also the two paths that Chuaner told me before. It seems that I need to make a decision as soon as possible. Quickly, Luo Ping disappeared at the main entrance of the Luo family's estate. And that walked out of the Luo family's territory. Lu Changfeng walked onto the bustling streets. At this point, he walked slowly forward with his hands on his back. Bingtanghulu, sell Bingtanghulu. Baozi, a fragrant and sweet big Baozi. Animal masks, does anyone want interesting animal masks? As they walked, the vendors on both sides of the street were shouting and laughing, constantly shouting and selling. At first, Luo Changfeng's mood was quite good. The bustling streets, hurried pedestrians, and the strong smell of fireworks. Everything in front of him made him feel very novel. Such scenes, although he often saw them in his past life, were only seen on television, mobile phones, or computers. But now, suddenly he is immersed in it. I have personally experienced and witnessed such a scene. Not to mention, it's really a bit different. However, it's a bit regrettable. Luo Changfeng's good mood didn't last long. As time passed, as he walked further and further away, the situation on the street seems to have experienced a 360-degree reversal. The original bustling scene has completely disappeared. The shouting of vendors on both sides of the street disappeared. Although there were still hurried pedestrians, Luo Changfeng couldn't see any smiles on their faces. What can be seen seems to be only the deep worry and numbness. Even the houses on both sides of the street. It seems to be somewhat dilapidated and worn out. No, don't catch me. Dad, help me, Dad. Suddenly, a childish cry from the little girl rang out not far ahead. Here are 3 taels of silver, your daughter's hard-earned money. Put it away, don't lose it and come find us. A man with a robust physique resembling a tiger or wolf, with a fierce expression on his face. He was holding 3 taels of broken silver and handed it to a man dressed in tattered cloth, with a yellow-skinned face and a numb expression. Thank you, thank you. With these 3 taels of silver, I can recoup my losses. I can make a comeback, I will definitely make a comeback. Yinger, wait for me. When I get back to my original account, I will definitely redeem you. I'll give you something delicious to eat, something spicy to drink, and I'll also give you a big house to live in. The man looked at his daughter, who was constantly asking for help, with some reluctance. He gritted his teeth tightly, his eyes red, and forced himself to turn his head. I walked straight into a gambling house not far away from me. Hee, little girl, let's go. Grandpa, I'll take you to a place. You can enjoy delicious food, spicy food, and a carefree and joyful life. The robust man spoke while laughing wildly and recklessly. After the man laughed, the few little brothers behind him also laughed. And the girl who was tightly tied by the rope couldn't help but shed a desperate tear at the corner of her eyes. A good place to eat delicious food, drink spicy food, and enjoy leisure and happiness. Even if those few men don't mention it, the girl is very clear in her heart. What exactly is that place for? As time goes by, in the blink of an eye, those few people and the girl. It also disappeared from Luo Changfeng's sight. Is this the chaotic world? Luo Changfeng looked around at the chaotic and dirty streets, and looked at the hurried and numb people. Later, he looked at those lying at the doorstep, with their hands open and motionless. It's like people waiting for death to come. He couldn't help but let out a slight sigh and shook his head, saying, forget it, I won't leave. Let's go back. Seeing these scenes, Luo Changfeng lost his interest in leisurely walking. Zhaoxuyuan.com. Now he just wants to go home quickly. Then, try to improve your cultivation as quickly as possible. Nowadays, the deterrent power of the Great Wind Dynasty is still present. This world can become so chaotic. If at any time, the Great Wind Dynasty will no longer be able to suppress riots in various parts of its territory, and it will truly be the step of a group of strong men rising together to compete with the Great Wind Dynasty. The world is expected to become even more chaotic. So, if Luo Changfeng wants to survive in this chaotic world, or, to put it another way, he wants to preserve the Luo family, the source of his power. The power that is so powerful that outsiders fear is essential. Just as Luo Changfeng turned around and was about to walk towards the direction where the Luo family was located. There are about 10 fugitives dressed in cloth and wielding rusty blades. Suddenly, he appeared beside Luo Changfeng. He also surrounded Luo Changfeng in groups. "Old man, you look quite wealthy. In such a chaotic world, one can still eat with a rosy complexion and full of energy in energy. I think there is a lot of wealth in the family, right? How do we say it? Are you going to invite you on a trip next, or are you going to follow us obediently?" Among about 10 fugitives. A person wearing black clothes and a black scarf on their head. Although somewhat slender, he holds a brand new steel knife. A person who looked like a leader was looking at Luo Changfeng with a smile on his face. That gaze was like looking at one's prey. As the only ancestor of the Luo family, Luo Changfeng felt a bit uncomfortable. Chapter 6. Black Wind Village, 9 Leaders. You are listening at novelfull.audio. There are about 10 fugitives holding rusty sharp blades in front of me. The vast majority are just ordinary people with a bit of courage and a little bit of strength. Even with the tense expression in the eyes of these 10 or so fugitives, Luo Changfeng can easily judge that these people should have just joined. Only the one wearing a black suit and a black scarf on his head, holding a brand new steel knife, with a fierce expression on his face. The leader, although somewhat thin in body shape, exudes a bloody smell on his body. It is an existence that has already entered the realm of cultivation. However, in fact, the strength seems to be limited to the initial stage of refining leather. There are around 10 people like this. Even if it's 50, 60, or even hundreds. Luo Changfeng was able to kill it and leave safely. What are you thinking, old man? Didn't you hear what I said? Changsheng town, on a seemingly chaotic and barren street far from the Luo family's territory. The leader among about 10 fugitives. Seeing Luo Changfeng standing silently, he remained silent and did not answer his own questions. After a moment, he became a bit angry. If it were in a peaceful era, that would be all. But now, it's a chaotic world. In times of chaos, human life is even cheaper than grass. If it weren't for the old man in front of him, there should have been a lot of money at home. He had already taken action and killed the old man with a single blow. Brothers, take action. Don't give this old guy any color to see, he really doesn't take us seriously. The leader of the fugitive dressed in black waved the brand new steel knife in his hand. Command the fugitives beside him. About 10 fugitives exchanged glances at each other. Then, holding a rusty blade, he charged towards Luo Changfeng in front of him. "Oh, do these people really treat me like an ordinary old man?" Luo Changfeng looked at the fugitives in front of him. His expression gradually became colder and colder. However, for these fugitives rushing towards them, Luo Changfeng did not intend to personally take action. As he left the Luo family's territory, he vaguely felt that there seemed to be many instances of refining skins following behind him. With the emergence of these fugitives, the presence of those cultivators in the refining realm became increasingly apparent. As these fugitives charged towards them, those cultivators in the realm of refining skins even gradually appeared in various corners around them, approaching their positions infinitely. Centered around Ta Luo Changfeng, a dense and airtight protective circle has been formed. Those little guys from the Luo family, you're interested. Luo Changfeng finally glanced at the fugitives. He silently turned around. As the sound of weapons colliding with each other gradually sounded. As the smell of blood gradually permeates the air, it gradually spreads. This battle came to an end. Elder Changfeng, those mountain bandits with no strength have all fallen. The mountain bandits in the early stage of refining skins have been captured alive. How should this person handle it? A small servant commander dressed in gray clothes, with strength roughly equivalent to the perfect realm of leather refining. At this moment, Zheng lowered his head slightly and arched his hands. He asked Luo Changfeng with a respectful expression. Do you know where that group of people came from? Luo Changfeng carried his hands behind his back and silently looked ahead. This group of mountain bandits seems to have emerged from the Black Wind village in a small mountain outside Changsheng town. Black Wind village. Luo Changfeng's eyes narrowed slightly. Afterwards, some information about the Black Wind fortress came to his mind. Heifeng village was established approximately 6 months ago. The headquarters seems to be located in a deserted small mountain outside Changsheng town. The leader of Heifeng village, with strength in the later stage of leather refining. There are about 500 people in Heifeng village. Overall strength, it ranks 10th among the top 10 bandits, and horse thieves outside Changsheng town. Kill it directly. As for the Black Wind fortress. Luo Changfeng thought for a moment before whispering to the servant commander beside him, go find it and see if you can find the headquarters of the Black Wind fortress. If you can find it, you can easily destroy it. If you can't find. Let's put it aside for the time being over there. When we have time, let's move on and deal with this village. Yes. The servant nodded heavily. Afterwards, he turned around and walked towards the mountain bandit in the early stage of skin refining with a somewhat cold expression. You can't kill me. Do you know who I am? I am the 9th leader in the Black Wind village. If you kill me, my elder brother. The bandit leader saw the servants in front of him gradually approaching him. So he struggled frantically. He even shouted and revealed his identity directly. It seems that I want to exchange this for my own life. It's just a pity don't say that this bandit is just a mere 9th leader in the Black Wind village. Even if this guy is the leader of the Black Wind village. In Changsheng town, one of the 4 major families, the Luo family, still had to die in front of them. Bang! The round and rolling head suddenly made a dull sound as it fell to the ground. The big scar on the neck of the bandit's 9th leader. The crimson blood kept splashing out. Do you know who the old man you just wanted to take action on? The servant slowly put away the brand new steel knife in his hand. With a somewhat calm expression, he looked at the ground and whispered, that's Changsheng town, the ancestor of the Luo family, one of the 4 major families. Don't say you're just a 9-headed master in the Black Wind village, just looking for a book garden at www.zhaozuiyuan.com. Even if you are the leader of the Black Wind village, in front of that old man. You still can't escape death. After resolving this matter, the servants quickly started cleaning the scene. Until those servants took all the bodies away and threw them to the side of the street. The servants of the Luo family gradually disappeared from Luo Changfeng's sight. Hidden in various corners around. It's also time to go back. Luo Changfeng glanced at the location hidden by the servant who had just spoken to him. Quickly, he withdrew his gaze. Silently walking towards the direction where the Luo family is located. Sir. Lend me some money, please lend me some money. As long as you are willing to lend me money, once I repay my debt, I will definitely repay you twice, 3 times, or even 5 times. On the street side, Luo Changfeng had just taken a few steps. A middle-aged man dressed in tattered cloth clothes, with a yellow and thin face, was kicked out by a gambler. quickly crawling towards him, and tightly gripping Luo Changfeng's pants with his slightly dark hands. This guy is the one who just sold his daughter. Luo Changfeng glanced at the middle-aged man with red eyes and a face full of embarrassment at his feet. He looked again and saw that the gambling house, which was run among the poor people, seemed to be very lively. Luo Changfeng sighed somewhat helplessly and whispered, "This gambling house really harms people a lot." Chapter 7. Reviewing the Light. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. After kicking the middle-aged man at his feet hard, Luo Changfeng quickly walked towards the direction where the Luo family was located. As he returned to the Luo family territory, when entering the main entrance, as the current head of the Luo family, Luo Ping was silently standing at the main entrance, looking around with a somewhat nervous expression. Changfeng ancestor. Seeing the figure of Luo Changfeng appear, he is still safe and sound. He lowered his head slightly and said hello. Then, he slowly exhaled a breath. The big stone hanging in my heart suddenly fell at this moment. As long as it's okay, Changfeng ancestor is fine. Luo Changfeng glanced at Luo Ping beside him, who seemed somewhat strange. He nodded as a gesture. Afterwards, he ignored that guy. Just silently walking towards my own courtyard. The realm in the middle of bone refining is enough to restore some of his qi and blood, as well as his previous strength. But this realm is still a bit too low. In this Qingshi town, if you want to be safe and even preserve the Luo family where he is located, at least restore one's cultivation to its peak period. Even surpassing the peak. Elevate cultivation to the realm of refining internal organs above bone refining. Only in this way can Luo Changfeng sit firmly on the high platform and quietly observe the many changes in Qingshi town. After a moment, Luo Changfeng returned to his courtyard. He just returned to his yard. So he directly found an open space and sat cross-legged. Striving to adjust one's breathing rhythm and the speed of qi and blood flow in the body. And that Luo Ping at the main entrance of the Yu Luo family. After seeing the Changfeng ancestor, it seemed that there was nothing major. He hurriedly ran towards his own yard. My son, my son. As soon as he returned to his small courtyard, Luo Ping, the current head of the Luo family, couldn't help but shout loudly and repeatedly. Father, you're really. In the courtyard, the frail young man dressed in white sat quietly under a stone pavilion. After hearing these urgent calls, he couldn't help but curl his lips. Looking up at the direction of his father, he said with a somewhat helpless expression, "You are really lacking the demeanor of the head of our Luo family. If outsiders see it, I don't know what to say about you. I only do this when I enter this courtyard." Luo Ping smiled awkwardly and then said, "Besides, even if outsiders see it, who dares to talk too much? Forget it, let's not talk about that anymore. Father, why did you suddenly rush back for? The ancestors have already returned, but while wandering in Qingshi town, they encountered a group of mountain bandits." Mountain bandit. Upon hearing his father Luo Ping's words, Luo Chuan's right hand, holding a ceramic tea cup, couldn't help but tremble slightly. In the eyes that should have been calm, the first mock examination cold light could not help flashing. Changfeng ancestor, although his strength is no longer at its peak. Its qi and blood have also been exhausted to the limit. Shou Yuan is about to run out, and it's not excessive to say that half of his body has fallen into the soil. Even hitting a few able-bodied ordinary people can be quite challenging. Not to mention, to deal with those mountain bandits holding sharp blades. However, even so, the ancestors of Changfeng are still an extremely important presence for the Luo family, one of the 4 major families in Qingshi town. Father, do you know which group of mountain bandits it is? After a long silence, Luo Chuan finished drinking the cup of tea in his hand. His voice was slightly cold as he asked his father. The servant said that the group of bandits seemed to have come out of a small mountain outside Changsheng town, in a village called Heifeng village. Black Wind Fortress. Luo Chuan nodded silently upon hearing this. After pondering for a moment again, he whispered to the father beside him, "Father, how is the state of our ancestors?" "Her face is rosy and full of vitality. It's like an image of returning light. I just don't know how long our ancestors can maintain this state." On the side of the Luo family, I learned all the news about Luo Changfeng going out. Both are one of the 4 major families in Changsheng town. The Zhao family, who can be considered a feud of the Luo family. At this point, I have also learned such good news. "Xian heir, are you sure about this news?" In a slightly chilly room in the Zhao family's area. Zhao Qian, the son of the current head of the Zhao family and the young head of the Zhao family. Standing excitedly, with a smile on his face. "Dad, this matter is absolutely true. I witnessed this with my own eyes. The old man from the Luo family's land suddenly left today and walked around in Changsheng town. And that old man accidentally ran into a group of mountain bandits while going out. However, it's a pity that the old man has many Luo family servants guarding him. The old man from the Luo family should have returned to the Luo family's territory now." Mountain bandits. Upon hearing this, Zhao Wu, the current head of the Zhao family, couldn't help but sigh slightly. This is indeed a bit regrettable. Looking at the current conflicts between the 3 brothers of the Luo family. If that old thing in the Luo family's land suddenly dies. Zhaoxuyuan.com. The collapse of the Luo family was also happening in an instant. However, since Zhao Wu knows the importance of that old thing in the Luo family's land, the people on the Luo family's side should also know. When the old man went out for a walk, there were elite servants guarding him. This can also be considered a reasonable thing. As for what his son Zhao Qian said with his own eyes just now, Zhao Wu didn't quite believe it. This news was probably sent by the Zhao family to specifically monitor the servants of the Luo family. However, the news was intercepted midway by his own son. "Since you said it, you saw it with your own eyes. Did you see today how that old thing looks?" This. Zhao Qian heard his father ask this question, and he immediately felt a little flustered. The servants of the Zhao family have already told him about the process. He has also understood some details. But there is a question about the old man in the Luo family's land, his appearance, and his mental state. He really didn't understand. "You didn't see this with your own eyes, did you?" In the room, Zhao Wu, who was sitting quietly on the main seat, hesitated when he saw his son. His gaze occasionally glanced towards a servant of the Zhao family behind him. Zhao Wu instantly understood everything. "Why don't you talk about it? How is the old man in the Luo family's field looking today? What is the mental state like?" Zhao Wu shifted his gaze and looked towards a servant behind Zhao Qian. Chapter 8. Zhao Wu. The Zhao family will rise again. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the room, the servant saw the head of the household, Zhao Wu, shift his gaze to himself. "I can only stand up helplessly." Provided a response. "Master, the old ancestor in the Luo family's land looks very well and has an exceptionally good mental state. Is your complexion excellent? Is your mental state abnormal?" Upon hearing these words, Zhao Wu couldn't help but fall into a moment of contemplation. Based on Wang Kuan's judgment, the old man in the Luo family's land should die in no more than half a month. The current state should be that half of the body has been buried in the lus. In this situation, let alone going out for a walk. Even a slight movement of the body should be a relatively difficult task. But now the current situation of that old thing is so unreasonable. I think that old thing didn't take some miraculous elixir to prolong life. That is the phenomenon of light returning. Compared to these two situations, Zhao Wu is still more willing to believe in the latter. It seems that the deadline for that old thing is approaching. The conflicts in the Luo family's territory will also erupt completely due to the old man's death. If it were really at that time, the disintegration of the Luo family would not be far away. The Zhao family in Changsheng town, will also rise again at that time. With his thoughts at this point, Zhao Wu waved his hand. Drive away all the servants of the Zhao family in the room. Do you have a clear understanding of the location and various information of the bluestone veins of various qualities in the Luo family's hands? Clearly, I naturally understand this kind of thing, son. Zhao Qian nodded slightly and answered with a hint of guilt. And Zhao Wu seemed to have sensed the guilt of his unruly son. Turning his head slightly, he glanced at him. Subsequently, he slowly said, near Changsheng town, there is abundant production of affordable, sturdy, and durable bluestone. About 300 years ago, there were only 3 major families in Changsheng town. These 3 major families are the Hu family, the Jing family, and the Zhao family where we are located. The Hu family is in charge of all the markets in Changsheng town, controlling most of the transactions in Changsheng town, and has the strongest business ability. The Jing family is in charge of all the gambling houses in Changsheng town, and they have a large number of thugs under their command, with the strongest military strength. And our Zhao family controls all the bluestone mines near Changsheng town. Our Zhao family is responsible for the mining and sales of bluestone near Changsheng town. Our Zhao family's strength is not much inferior to those 2 families. However, since the Luo family, who was a migrant, established themselves in Changsheng town, the situation has undergone many changes. I don't know what method the ancestor of the Luo family used more than 300 years ago. In a very short period of time, a large number of undiscovered and unexplored bluestone veins were discovered. As the number of bluestone veins in the Luo family's hands gradually approached, they were on par with our Zhao family, and even surpassed them. In an instant, there was a earth-shattering change in the situation. The mining and sales of bluestone. It's no longer our Zhao family's one-man shop. Even the pricing of bluestone is no longer when our Zhao family can order as much as they want. That outsider, the ancestor of the Luo family back then. Not only did he forcefully bite off a large piece of meat from our Zhao family. Even as a result, he completely established himself in Changsheng town. At that time, our ancestors of the Zhao family did not have the intention of resisting, but the old ancestor of the Naihe Luo family was a bit too powerful. This matter has come to an end like this. As he spoke, Zhao Wu silently stood up and walked step by step towards his son Zhao Qian. Dad, why have you never mentioned this to me before? Zhao Qian saw his father constantly approaching, so he instinctively took a step back. What's the use of telling you about things over 300 years ago? Dad, now. Why did you mention this to me again? Zhao Qian swallowed his saliva and took another step back. He maintained a certain distance from his father, who had always been extremely majestic. He had the courage to lift his head and secretly glanced at the face of his father, the head of the family. Sure enough, as expected. At this moment, his father's face seemed somewhat unattractive. Stupid. Zhao Wu looked at his son Zhao Qian, who was somewhat timid and foolish. His heart was filled with anger. I don't care if you know or don't know about the information about the bluestone veins in the Luo family's hands. But I want you to take note of everything during this period. When the time comes, the old man in the Luo family's land dies, and the Luo family cannot unite due to various conflicts and issues. It is the best time for our Zhao family to destroy the Naoluo family. And the bluestone veins in the Luo family's hands, I want you to lead someone and take them all in the shortest possible time. After speaking, Zhao Wu quickly walked to the door of the room and slowly closed his eyes. Striving to calm down my somewhat fluctuating mentality. Dad, even if the Luo family cannot unite, their overall strength is not weak. Can our Zhao family really wipe out the Luo family in one fell swoop? In the room, Zhao Qian swallowed his saliva and asked this question with a slightly trembling voice. You don't need to worry about this issue. You just need to handle what I have entrusted to you. After finishing these words, Zhao Wu quickly walked out of this room. As the current head of the Zhao family, he is extremely wise and wise. How could he have such a foolish son? He was even a bit scared if he continued to stay here. Zhaoxuan.com I will really be angry and sick by my own son. As for the issue of the comprehensive strength of the Luo family, Zhao Wu is not unaware, he even knows much more about the Luo family than his own son. However, it is difficult to deal with the Luo family who are united in their efforts. Is it difficult to deal with the Luo family, who have erupted into conflicts and cannot unite? Not to mention anything else, it's just that nowadays they control the vast majority of the elite members of the Luo family. As the third member of the Luo family with the strongest military strength, that has well-developed limbs and a simple mind. Isn't it easy to deal with someone who always wants to go out and explore? If you want to solve the Luo family, that third person from the Luo family is definitely a huge breakthrough. In the room, Zhao Qian, as the young head of the Zhao family, saw his father disappear from his sight. He slowly exhaled a breath. His expression seemed to have relaxed a lot. It has to be said that he is by the side of his father, the head of the family. Zhao Qian always felt the boundless pressure pouring towards him like a tide, even making it difficult for him to breathe. Isn't peaceful coexistence good? The coexistence of the four major families has been going on for over 300 years. Is the Luo family really so easy to deal with? Although Zhao Qian didn't say anything, he still had some worries in his heart. Besides, another challenge is various information about the bluestone veins in the hands of the Luo family. It's not an easy task to write it all down. Chapter 9. Black-haired tiger and Xiong Qi, sir. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the blink of an eye, another day passed. The area near Changsheng town is rich in cheap and sturdy bluestone. There are a particularly large number of mountains nearby. And the number of these mountains is more than the number of bandits who dominate the mountains. Naturally, it will gradually increase with the passage of time. The so-called Black Wind Fortress took advantage of the recent years of severe drought in the Great Wind Dynasty, coupled with the rampant exploitation of officials. As a result, a small copycat rapidly emerged. However, although this Heifeng fortress is now only a small shanzhai, the total number of people in the shanzhai has just exceeded 500. But this Black Wind village attaches great importance to the sources of various news. Especially the news from Changsheng town, which is closest to Heifeng village. Heifeng village is the most concerning. In the early morning, the sky was gray and bright, and a thick layer of fog in the mountains had not yet completely dissipated. Near Changsheng town, on a small hill occupied by Heifeng village. In a shanzhai that is not particularly large in area. A small servant dressed in cloth, carrying rusty steel knives with many notches. He hurriedly ran towards the center of a conference hall in the knockoff. The big boss, it's not good, there's an accident, there's a big deal. The little servant carrying a rusty steel knife ran while shouting loudly. In a hurry, what does it look like? On the conference hall of Heifeng village, a huge and incredibly domineering armchair made of bluestone. As the founder of Heifeng village and also the current leader of Heifeng village, black-haired tiger Xiongqi. Relying on that huge and incredibly domineering armchair, feeling bored. I hold a pot of wine in my left hand and a fat and oily pig trotter in my right hand. Eating and drinking at the same time. Staring at the slightly panicked little servant in front of me. The big leader, just yesterday, was the 9th leader of our Black Wind village. 9 leaders. What's wrong with Lao Jiu? Black-haired tiger Xiong, sitting on the armchair, saw the small servant in front of him speaking intermittently. His face immediately showed a hint of dissatisfaction. Just yesterday, Zhou Dongjia was killed by someone in Changsheng town. The little one swallowed his saliva and said nervously. What are you saying? Black-haired tiger Xiong suddenly widened his eyes, which were as big as copper bells. Two long white mist sprayed out from the nostrils. The expression on his face changed from boredom to anger in an instant. Since the establishment of Heifeng village 6 months ago, it has been running smoothly. No one has ever dared to easily provoke the Black Wind Fortress established by Xiongqi. Because those who dared to provoke the Black Wind village have now grown 3 meters of grass on their graves. What Xiongqi didn't expect was just as he was planning to showcase his grand plan and lead the Black Wind Fortress towards a stronger path. Just a few days after he recruited him, the 9th leader of the Black Wind village, who had the initial realm of refining skins, unexpectedly died like this. Don't look at the 9 masters of the Black Wind village, they are just martial artists in the early stage of refining skins. But in this chaotic world, even those physically strong men and those with a lot of strength are somewhat difficult to recruit. In this way, let alone those who have already entered the realm of cultivation and possess certain strength. Damn it, dare you touch the people of my Black Wind village? You're not going to die, are you? In the conference hall, black-haired tiger Xiongqi cursed while directly mentioning the 10 forged steel sword beside him that had seen countless blood and cut off countless heads. Step by step, I walked up to the small servant. With a fierce expression, he whispered to the little servant, who moved the hand. Luo, the Luo family. The little servant responded in a trembling low voice, facing the strong sense of oppression that constantly emanated from the head of his family. Is it the Luo family? Xiongqi nodded silently and raised the 10 forged steel knives in his hand, wanting to go outside. It seems that they still want to gather all the people in the Black Wind village. To wash away the shame of the 9 leaders of the Black Wind village being killed by bloodwashing the Luo family. By the way, Xiongqi walked halfway. He seemed to remember something and then went back. Which Luo family is the one you just mentioned? Changsheng Town, Luo family. The little servant lowered his head slightly and replied. I know it's the Luo family in Changsheng Town, but there is not only one Luo family in Changsheng Town, so which one do you mean by the Luo family? Changsheng Town, one of the 4 major families of the Luo family. After this conversation ended, the entire hall fell into a deadly silence. Among the 4 strongest families in Changsheng Town, the Luo family. Xiongqi looked at the little servant in front of him and repeated the question with some disbelief. Yes, yes. The little servant nodded repeatedly. After the identity of the murderer who killed the 9 leaders of the Black Wind village was completely confirmed. As the current leader of the Black Wind village, black-haired tiger Xiongqi. At this moment, I have actually calmed down a bit. I saw him quietly return to the main seat in this conference hall and sit down quietly. With a furrowed brow, one's mind is constantly pondering on something. The big boss, should we repay this grudge? The small servant in the council hall suddenly fell silent when he saw his own big boss. He mustered the courage and cautiously asked this question. Revenge. What kind of revenge? Xiongqi's thoughts were interrupted, and he stared fixedly at the small servant in front of him and asked in response. It's the revenge of the 9 masters family. Jiudangjia. What Jiudangjia? We have never had a called Jiudangjia in Heifeng village, you remember it for me. Ah. The little servant seemed surprised. You step back, I'm a bit tired. Xiongqi waved his hand and rubbed his head with a headache at Shuyuan www.zhaoxuyuan.com. And as the bandit minion withdrew from this conference hall. A scholar who has been hiding in a corner of the hall and looks quite handsome. At this moment, he couldn't help but walk out quietly. Sir, something big has happened. I originally thought that I would take action against Changsheng Town when the Black Wind village developed and grew to a certain extent. But who ever thought? That dog-day-old 9 secretly went to Changsheng Town behind my back in advance. That dog thing, just go to Changsheng Town in advance. But who is not good to provoke him? He happened to provoke the Luo family, one of the 4 strongest families in Changsheng town. The current Luo family is not something that our small Black Wind village can provoke. Sir, what should I do next? Xiong furrowed his brows and asked the scholar in front of him in a low voice with a somewhat helpless expression. If he guessed correctly, the current Luo family. It is very likely that he has already focused his attention on the Black Wind village where he is located. Fortunately, the headquarters of Heifeng fortress is located in a relatively concealed area. His Black Wind village should not be so easily found by the Luo family. But just in case, a mistake. If his Black Wind village is found by the Luo family, won't he and his Black Wind village be ruined? Don't be fooled by the recent days, the Black Wind fortress has gained immense prestige in front of countless refugees and civilians. But if we really compare Black Wind village with those families that have existed for 200 or 300 years. The Heifeng fortress, which has only been established for only half a year, is naturally far inferior to those wealthy families and clans with profound social heritage. Chapter 10. The development plan of Heifeng fortress, its strength has once again improved. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A big boss doesn't need to worry. In the conference hall of Heifeng village, there is a scholar dressed in a Confucian robe and holding a white feather fan. As he walked towards the black-haired tiger, he whispered with a smile on his face, although the Luo family, one of the 4 major families in Changsheng town, is strong, it is already difficult to protect itself. As long as I am in the Black Wind village, I can be more self-disciplined during this period. Is it difficult for the Luo family to protect themselves? Xiong couldn't help but furrow his brows slightly when he heard these words. He didn't quite understand what the gentleman in front of him was saying. And the handsome man dressed in a Confucian robe, holding a white feather fan, like a scholar, seemed to also see Xiong's doubts in his heart. So, he spoke up and explained, do you know the Changfeng ancestor in the Luo family's land? The Changfeng ancestor of the Luo family. Xiong pondered for a moment and nodded, saying, I naturally know about the Changfeng ancestor of the Luo family. But what does this have to do with the downfall of the Luo family? Don't worry, big boss, just listen to me carefully. In the conference hall. As the scholar dressed in a Confucian robe and holding a white feather fan delved deeper into his explanation. The black-haired tiger and the majestic tiger gradually understood. Why, my gentleman suddenly said that the Luo family, one of the 4 major families in Changsheng town, is already struggling to survive. Sir, if we really follow what you said. The ancestor of the Luo family is nearing his end, and his life is not long. The collapse of the Luo family will also happen in an instant. Can my Black Wind village also follow behind the Zhao family in Changsheng town and get a share of the pie? Speaking of which, Xiong's face gradually showed a hint of greed. Even though, the majority of the assets under the Luo family were eaten by the Zhao family. As long as they can eat some leftover food that the Zhao family didn't have time to eat in the Black Wind village. This is already an opportunity for Heifeng village to grow. On the side of the Luo family, it's best not to touch our Black Wind village. Why? Black-haired tiger Xiong suddenly became a little anxious. Knowing that the massive Luo family, which had existed for more than 300 years, was about to perish, he could not come forward and bite a piece of meat from the Luo family. This made Xiong feel very uncomfortable in his heart. The Dangjia, now Heifeng village is weak and ranks at most 10th among many villages near Changsheng town. Now, the most important thing for our Black Wind village is not to stare at the soon-to-fall Luo family. Our most important goal in Heifeng village is to gather nearby refugees as much as possible and devour a small group of bandit forces nearby. Only in this way can our Black Wind village capture that glimmer of opportunity for rise in this chaotic world. Otherwise, even if our Black Wind village really bites a piece of meat from the Luo family. Do you really think that our Black Wind village can withstand the wealth plundered from the Luo family, big boss? The words of the scholar wearing a Confucian robe and holding a white feather fan. It's like drinking a hard hit. directly awakened Xiongqi completely. What the gentleman said is indeed reasonable. So, as the gentleman said, gather nearby refugees and devour a small group of mountain bandits nearby. Try to enhance the strength of my Black Wind village as much as possible. As time goes by, the sky gradually became brighter and brighter. Changsheng town, above the street. Pedestrians, merchants, and some outsiders who come and go. Its quantity is gradually increasing. As one of the 4 strongest families in Changsheng town, the Luo family. At this point, it was already like that precise machine, starting to run quickly. Ha! Suck! Ha! Suck! The Luo family's territory is located in the most central position. In the courtyard where the ancestors of Changfeng are located. As the only ancestor of the Luo family, Luo Changfeng is constantly adjusting his stance and waving his arms. Even as he breathed and breathed, his movements gradually became faster and faster. Quick, fast, his movements are getting faster and faster. Until he finished the whole set of fierce tiger energy. He slowly stopped his movements and adjusted his slightly altered breathing rate. A whole day of hard work without any improvement. This made Luo Changfeng feel a bit disappointed. Now that a whole day has passed, how much has the 100 points of qi and blood consumed yesterday been restored? Name: Luo Changfeng. Shouyuan. 8 days plus, cultivation. Mid-stage bone refining plus, qi and blood. 1350.50, PS safe and usable qi and blood is 85 points. Skill. Ordinary and ultimate fierce tiger power, understanding. 30% plus. Seeing this, Luo Changfeng couldn't help but ponder for a moment. In a day, you can recover about 50 points of qi and blood. But what does the plus sign after this cultivation mean? Is it difficult to increase 85 points of qi and blood by another small level? Or can I use more than 85 points of HP? Although, Luo Changfeng is still more willing to believe the latter. But he still couldn't resist the curiosity in his heart. Extend your right hand and click the plus sign behind your cultivation. To elevate a small realm, it requires 200 points of HP. Has the host increased? Yes, no, 200 points of HP. Even if the family's qi and blood are fully restored, the safe and controllable range of searching for Xiuyuan www.zhaoxuyuan.com cannot reach 200. I don't know if it's possible to add 85 points first. Wait until the total amount of qi and blood reaches 200, and then break through. Luo Changfeng thought so in his heart. And this time, Golden Finger seemed to hear his inner words. In front of Luo Changfeng again, a semi-transparent window popped up. May I ask if you want to consume 85 points of HP and slightly increase your cultivation? Yes, no, 2 choices appeared clearly in Luo Changfeng's sight. Good guy, is that really possible? Luo Changfeng was somewhat surprised. However, after being surprised, he once again extended his emaciated evil right hand and clicked the yes button. Here we go. Luo Changfeng silently closed his eyes. Feeling the mysterious force that suddenly appeared inside my body. Under the strengthening of mysterious powers. His body was once again reborn. His strength is rapidly increasing, and his cultivation is also rapidly improving. However, this situation did not last long. About half a minute later, the mysterious power suddenly disappeared as if it had never appeared before. Power seems to have increased significantly. Although my cultivation has not yet entered the realm of late bone refining. But my strength is indeed even stronger than before. In the courtyard, Luo Changfeng clenched his fists tightly, feeling the increasingly powerful power inside his body. He couldn't help but murmur softly.